Hello world, my name is Ben. This is AnyLogic 101, a video series where I explain quick tips and tricks about AnyLogic that I've learned over many years. And today I want to talk about naming conventions. So, how do you name all the elements and objects you put into your AnyLogic model? There are two schools, and I'm a firm believer in one of them. So, one way to name your objects is just to name them. If you have a variable that tracks the income of an agent, you name it income. If you have a function that adds numbers together, you call it add numbers. That is okay, but in my opinion, it's squarely not the best way to do it. And there's an easier way that will make your life a lot easier in daily life. More structured and more simpler to understand, easier for other people to get into, and just all around better. Only that other people don't agree. But let me convince you of what I mean. So the other method I'm talking about is to name your things according to a naming principle. So what I do is I give my objects a prefix that indicates what kind of object it is. As simple as that. So all variables start with a v underscore. All functions start with f underscore. All parameters start with p underscore. And so on. State chart states start with s underscore. So I don't have an exhaustive list of all the prefixes, and you can basically come up with your own. So for a variable, you can as well use var underscore or whatever. It really doesn't matter. Just come up with something that is sensible, easy to maintain, easy to remember, easy to recognize. I'm not religious about the number of letters, so most things have just one letter as their prefix, but some things like populations, I put POP because it's easier for me to remember, well, that's a population, fair enough. Now, the big question obviously is why. I can see this is a function, can't I? You know, it has the function icon. I can see this is a variable. Why the hell would you put in those prefixes? Well, there's a good reason, and that is coding. There's no way around coding in AnyLogic at some point. It's, you know, sooner or later you have to start coding. And coding, you do not type stuff. With coding, as I teach my students all the time as well, is you type a couple of letters, but then it's all code complete. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of somebody working on a big model. You don't have 6 functions in your agents. You might have dozens or even 100. It's not uncommon with larger models. And you want to do something. You do remember there was a function for it. You did create it, maybe yesterday, maybe a week ago. But you can't quite remember what it was called. Well, wouldn't it be nice to get a list of all the functions that you have in your agent? Well, when you do this naming convention, you do get it, because all you have to do is to type function. You know it's a function, so you type f underscore, then do code complete, control space. You get a nice list of all the functions in there. Similar for variables, if you want to access a variable. Now, in this case, there are only 2 variables, but there might be dozens of variables. So that's one reason why you use prefixes. That is the most common reason why you use prefixes. The other reason is if you are a more advanced user and you use the debugger. Probably most people don't use it, but as soon as you start getting serious with AnyLogic, I definitely recommend you start using it. So with a debugger, just like in any piece of software, you can just toggle breakpoints somewhere and say, stop the model when this line of code is executed. So let's start the debugger. And let's run the model. And let's make sure we actually trigger the debugging. All right, now it has triggered. So we're now in the debugging mode. It all looks kind of weird and unfamiliar, but it has basically stopped in this line of code. Now, what you typically want to figure out is what's going on in my model at this point in time where the model has stopped. And with a debugger, you can go into different agents and see what's going on. Now, what you typically need to know is what's the value of a variable right now. So when you name your things in the AnyLogic debugger, things are always sorted by their name. So if you follow a naming convention, all your parameters are in one place, all your variables are in one place. So it's very easy. If you don't do that, and if you name your variables and parameters just like what they do or what they are, they're going to be all over the place, and it's just a lot more hassle to figure out what's going on. Now, one final word of sort of caution or warning is this is not Java standard. In Java, you name your things using, I think it's called camel notation. So if you have a variable, you call it my variable doing whatever. So you start with lowercase, and then every new word is in uppercase, no space, obviously. Kind of looks like a camel. So in Java, people are not aware of using prefixes. So if you switch to a programming role after your AnyLogic role, make sure you follow the notations in your industry, in your standard. But while working with AnyLogic, I strongly recommend following this approach. Now, if you want to go deeper or further into this, there is a workshop, a keynote that I gave at the AnyLogic conference 2018. Google that and you'll find it, where we have at the end of the session, we have a long recorded discussion about that topic. And many people do not do this kind of coding convention, naming convention. And I think I've got good arguments why you should do it. It's not more effort, and it is so much more useful in using Code Complete and the debugger that I think you should do it. But many people still don't believe it. So make up your own mind, try both sides, and let me know what you think. Thanks a lot.